Good morning, everybody. This is David Gilmore, also known as LDS Prepper, and welcome to this very important, very exciting LDS Prepper Live on how to grow food as if your life depends on it. The last few weeks, we have been going over some very, very important information on how to protect your food storage from others, how to protect yourself for free, how to prepare and for the coming global reset. All those videos are here on ldsprepper.com. Please take the time and view those and view them with your family. They're very important, I think, very, very timely videos. And today we are talking about how to grow food as if your life depends on it. So welcome. I can see your chats over here. Please give me a like if you like what you're hearing. Please share this. Click the share button. Share it with the other people. This literally could save their lives. And I'm going to show you 3 things at the end of this video that literally could save your life. 3 very important things, and have a very, very important announcement that I'll make at the end of this video too. So say hello in the chat over there. Good to see you, KJV Mama. I'm excited that you're here also. Feel free to communicate, talk with each other over in the chat. And I'd like to get your feedback on how you garden, if there's a particular method that you use, if you're using fertilizer, if you're using cow manure, horse manure, sheep manure, chicken manure, what kind of plants you like to grow, if they're heirloom seeds, if they are hybrid seeds, and so forth. So I've got all my sound turned off, so if you can hear what I'm saying, please give me a thumbs up, or just say yes, I can hear you in the chat. If you would do that, I would appreciate it, because then I know. Got all my sound turned off. Let me turn this off. If you can hear what I'm saying, please give me a thumbs up, or just say yes, I can hear you in the chat. If you would do that, I would appreciate it. Turn this off. Okay. So that sounds like the sound is working. All right. So great. Thank you, Kelly, for letting me know. Hello, Chris. And let's get started in this very important presentation. So I'm going to move me. Oh, by the way, I apologize for my hair. It may be a little messed up today. As you can see, I've got a sling on my arm. I pulled my muscles carrying things that were way too heavy. And so I got a sling on here. So I apologize for my hair. My face is what it is. If I can't apologize for my face, I can't change that. If you got a problem with my face, talk to my parents about it. But you get what I have here this morning for you. All right, so let's talk about this most important subject here, and that is how to grow food as if your life depends on it. Mainly because I think that is actually what's going to happen here. And so we need to prepare for that. All right, by the way, this is my lovely bride of 40 years, 2 weeks ago. And I'm very excited to have been married with her for 40 years, and she is just a wonderful person. We are equally yoked in this venture to be prepared and be self-sustaining and to help others do the same. This is one morning's harvest from our garden. I'll show you exactly how we did that, what that looked like. And so she was actually canning food that morning. You can see the cans in the corner there. And as she had all this produce in the kitchen, and I said, we should take a picture of this. And so I got everything set up on the counter, and she says, well, if we're going to take a picture, you might as well get a pitchfork. So she had me get a pitchfork here, and we stood in our kitchen, and we took this picture. But this you can live off of, right? This, if you have food storage and you have fruit storage and food production, your food production can dramatically 2x or 4x your food storage. And so if you've got a year supply of food, you could literally, with food production, make that go 2 or 3 or 4 years. And you can see we've got squashes here, cucumbers, onions as big as softballs, huge tomatoes. We've got the carrots are amazing, squashes, pumpkins. These were growing on the ground, and some were grown vertically. But anyway, you can do this, and it doesn't make any difference what way you garden. I'm going to show you. I don't care if you use the lasagna garden method, or if you use the no-till method, or if you use whatever method it is. It doesn't make any difference. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to grow 5 to 10 times more food in less space, less water, less work, less cost, no weeds, in any soil, in any climate, with no soil amendments. This could literally save your life and your loved one's life. So it's very easy. It's a lot less work than the way that I grew up gardening with my parents. And it's very, very inexpensive. I grow those tomatoes you saw here, these beautiful, beautiful tomatoes. I grow those for 2 cents a pound, and I sell them for $3.99 a pound. $4 a pound. My cost is 2 cents. Let me show you how we do that. So let's get started here. This is a very disturbing, but I believe accurate quote from Henry Kissinger, who said, "Who controls the food supply controls the people." So, are you in control of your food supply? If you are, then you're not going to be controlled by other people. I really am concerned about the food supply chain right now. And in order for you to get in control of your food supply, you need to have the 3 things I'm going to share with you at the end, but also you need to have the experience. You know, I've been doing this gardening for 10 years or longer now, and I tell you what, I'm a lot better today than I was my first year. I have killed hundreds of seedlings trying to figure out how to grow seedlings. This isn't something you can just put in the closet and figure out you can pull out when you need it. You need the experience. So you be in control of your food, and don't let somebody else be in control of your food. All right, so how to grow food as if your life depends on it. This is a picture I took. I was walking through the garden, and this was in Houston, and I don't see red and green, but this was so vibrant. This little frog here on this tomato, it just popped out to me, and I grabbed this picture, and you can see this happy little frog there on this beautiful tomato and these super healthy plants, and we're going to show you how to do that. All right, this is the most important slide of the entire presentation, and this is the overriding truth for plant growth. These are laws. You cannot ignore these laws. Yesterday, I bought a gyroplane, and that gyroplane, whether I believe in the law of gravity or not, it's going to completely affect if that gyroplane stays in the air. All right, these 6 laws here will completely control your success as a gardener. Whether you consider you have a black thumb or a green thumb, whether you're a pro or a newbie, these 6 laws here are immutable laws. You cannot be successful as a gardener by ignoring any one of these laws. For example, the first law is light, and then temperature, then air, water, nutrition, and competition. So if you've got the light taken care of, and your plants get all the light they need, and you got the proper temperature, and you got the right air, and you got just the right amount of water and the proper nutrition, but you didn't keep the deer out from coming into your garden, all that other stuff doesn't make any difference because you just lost your garden. So you need to be very attentive to these 6 laws. We're going to go through each one of these laws individually. So the first law of light, you want to have 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. When we were living in Houston, Texas, we had 278 days of growing season there. And when we moved to Idaho, we had 78 days. And I was told when we moved here that you cannot grow tomatoes in winter because there wasn't enough light. Well, thank you very much for that information. I just brought up a calendar on the computer, saw how many hours of light were there in winter, saw that there was at least 6 hours of daylight in the winter, and this last winter all the way through winter, even when there was freezing outside, snow outside, 30, 40, 45-mile-an-hour winds, we grew and harvested tomatoes. And other people didn't because they feel that there isn't enough light. I know you can. I'm teaching you here how to grow food as if your life depends on it. So really, literally, in any climate that you're in, I'm going to show you how to do this. So even in winter, you can grow food. So the most important thing is you want direct sunlight all day long. So when we plant our garden, we plant our short plants on the south because we're in the northern hemisphere, and the sun comes from the east, goes around to the south, and comes up to the north, to the west. So we put the short plants in front and the tall plants in the back or on the east side. And that is because we want the best sun, which is the afternoon sun. And so our shorter plants may get shadowed in the morning from our taller plants, but the rest of the day they have full sunshine. You want to have a complete southern exposure, and like I mentioned, tall plants on the north and east, and make sure you're pruning your plants. I see a lot of people don't prune their plants. I see people who are growing, and I've been to hundreds of gardens helping people with the gardens. I see people growing, for example, squashes, pumpkins, and watermelons and so forth, and they don't prune their plants. And so literally they're causing sunshine interruption by having one leaf over another leaf. And so get rid of those leaves. Don't be drastic. You want to simply uncover a covered leaf. And so if I have two plants growing together like this, I will simply take my pruning shears and just cut right down the center. So I'm cutting a little bit off of this plant and a little bit off of this plant leaf. And then both those leaves are getting full sun. Or you can just simply prune one of those leaves off. But don't let the plant shade itself either. And don't let other neighboring plants shade themselves. So 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. Law number 1. Law number 2 is temperature. Remember when I said that we had 278 days of growing in Houston? That's because that's the number of days that we have in a row that's above freezing. So if you can control the light and control the temperature, you're well on your way to being able to grow food, any kind of food year round. So seed germination is very important. I do have a seed bank here. This is what I use. This is what I recommend. You can get this at LDS Prepper Store. You absolutely will need good, high quality, high germinating seeds. This is an heirloom seed bank. We'll talk about that more a little bit later. But that's got thousands of seeds in there. And those seeds are designed by God to germinate at peak temperatures 70 to 85 degrees. Now, I like to have 2 or 3 crops a year here in Idaho Falls outside of the greenhouse. And so I will typically take these seeds, put them in a seedling flat, and then put them on a heat mat and bring that temperature up to 70 to 85 degrees for those seeds to germinate. Once they've germinated, then they need light, the first law of plant growth, and then we turn the artificial light on top of them. And then we will transplant those seeds outside. So once those seeds have germinated, then I can turn that temperature down or actually turn it off as long as the temperature is above 60 degrees and let the seeds grow. If you leave the heat mat on too long after the seeds have come germinated and come above the soil, then they're going to be growing too fast. So I generally use the heat mat to get them started. Once they pop above the soil, I turn the heat mat off, and then I'm making sure I'm at least 60 degrees. Then you'll move those seedlings in your seedling flat, however you want to grow those, and you'll put them outside to kind of harden them off. And then when they're outside, they can stand temperatures between 60 and 95. That's really optimal growing temperature. 75, 80 degrees is like perfect. If your plants are in 95 degrees for very many days, you may have blossoms, but you may not have fruit because the plant is then severely stressed because of the heat. It's now in survival mode, and then it's going to just drop the fruit to stay alive. It knows it can't produce fruit and stay alive at the same time, so it'll drop the fruit. So do your best to have the right temperature between 60 and 95 degrees, optimally between 75 and 85 degrees there. Okay? So right now in my greenhouses, I've taken off all the insulation that I had up for the winter, and it was 92 degrees earlier this week, but it was more than 95 degrees in the greenhouse, so we have the fans going in the north greenhouse to make sure things were cooled down. And we'll talk about water here in a little bit later, but now I'm watering more often than I was earlier in the season. All right, so I will be here in probably a couple weeks adding shade cloth to my greenhouse because it'll just get too hot in there, and I don't want to get above that 95 degree for an extended period of time. So provide shade during the summer and provide insulation protection from winter, from cold in the winter. So this is our garden here in Idaho Falls. This was the first year that we moved here. This is awful, slimy, silty soil. When it gets wet, it's like snot. It's just slippery, slimy, and when it gets dry, it just cracks like crazy. It doesn't make any difference what kind of soil you have, as long as you don't have toxic soil. You can grow food as if your life depends on it. Now you can see here, I've got my big greenhouse in the back, and I've got my what I call a mini greenhouse right here, and that's what these little arches are for. And how to make these arches, those arches cost me 75 cents to make. I just followed the instructions inside the Midnight Gardening course book, which you can get at ldsprepperstore.com. And I just bent the PVC, and I just literally just stuck them right in the dirt. So first of all, we cleaned this area out of all the weeds and the rocks and the rhizomes and the roots. Then I made level soil beds, so it didn't cost me anything here to make these soil beds. I got 4 stakes here, 1 in each corner, and 2 pieces of string, and I'm growing literally for free. It doesn't cost me anything. I don't have to have sand. I don't have to have sawdust. I don't have to have wood to build up a grow box. I'm literally growing here in the dirt. And this is the exact same method we use in Texas. And doesn't make any difference what the environment was, because we were following these six laws. So here you can see I've got the mini A-frames without any plastic on there. And you can see that it's wet in here. I watered in here. And then here you can see I've got the mini A-frames covered with plastic, and some of it is uncovered. That is because I don't have anything growing down here yet, but I started planting my corn here. And I actually transplant almost all of my plants into the garden. That's another big secret, is that you want to get ahead of the game. And so I will generally, for example, this particular row here, this is all corn. And what I did is I planted 50 corn seeds in my little seedling flat. Then I transplanted the healthiest ones into the garden right over here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's corn over here. And so not only am I several weeks ahead of everybody else, but I have 100% food production from every hole I put in the ground, because I'm transplanting a plant. Now, is that more work? Yes. Is it less seeds? Yes, it's less seeds, because I only plant 10% more seeds to germinate than I want to put in the garden, because I know I get about a 97% germination rate with this seed bank. Now, this company, which is the only company I buy my seeds from, guarantees their seed banks and gives you a written guarantee for 5 years. So you have a guarantee of germination for 5 years. And I believe the warranty is after 5 years you can ship them back your seed bank if you haven't used it, and it will replace that with a new one at half off. So great warranty on this, great seeds. Even if you didn't replace it, they still have the best quality seeds. So anyway, so I transplanted my corn in here, and then when the temperatures get 50 degrees, I open up the end. So you can see it's more than 50 degrees because the plastic is off. Once it gets 70 degrees, I remove the plastic from the plants. So, and then at night, I pull the plastic back over and I tie it off the ends. And I'm growing food before anybody else is planting. Now, when I say I'm growing food before anybody else is planting, we just passed Memorial Day. This is the first year that we were in Idaho. This is that same garden on May 29th. May 29th isn't even Memorial Day yet, and you can see my corn is 7 feet tall. You can see we've got pumpkins already here. Look at our raspberries. Look at our potatoes. And you notice that the corn is kind of angling here. That's because I had never grown corn before, and I wanted to test different varieties of corn. So I grew like 25 of this variety, and then 2 weeks later I grew 25 of this variety, and then 2 weeks later I grew 25 of this variety, and I was testing to see which corns I like the best. I like the triple sweet corn the best. But anyway, before our neighbors even had any seeds in the ground, we are harvesting from our garden because we're following the second law, which is temperature. And so we germinated our seeds at the right temperature. We kept them at the right temperature as they were growing. We kept them in these mini greenhouses outside in terrible dirt because we were providing the nutrients and the water that they needed, and covering them at night. And then they just are amazing. I mean, people literally could not believe that we were harvesting May 29th, which was before my neighbors were even planting. You can do this. This is in southeast Idaho, zone 5A. All right, this is in Texas, and this is how to grow vertically. In this particular box here, I harvested 2,000 pounds of tomatoes, and I'm growing them vertically, and I'm growing them 9 inches apart. And so, how do you grow 5 to 10 times more food in the same space or less space? Well, you grow so that they all get light, so they have the right temperatures, and so and the way you do that is by pruning them and by growing and planting them 9 inches apart. How to do that is step by step in the Midlanda Gardening Course book. And by the way, when you order this book, I don't know if I've signed this one. Yep. I personally will sign that and autograph that book for you. And so in 10 years, this $25 book will be worth $25. However, in 6 months or 2 years, it may be worth your life. So anyway, I just wanted to share that I do sign those, and it's me. That's kind of my way of saying best of success to you. I'm here with you. I want you to be successful. I want you to be able to provide for your family. So beautiful, beautiful, healthy, high-producing garden there. Law number 3. So the first law is light. Second law is temperature. Third law is air. Now, what we're really talking about is soil air. You need to make sure that the plants can get oxygen through the roots. Plants don't breathe through their leaves. They actually exhale through their leaves. They use the leaves for photosynthesis, so they can process the nutrients they get. And they do get three nutrients from the air. They do get carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen through the air through their leaves. But primarily, they take in the nutrients and the air through the roots. And so, even in this terrible soil that we have here, really it's river silt soil that where our property is. Because I followed the instructions in the first section of this book on how to prepare that soil, we were able to make that soil so even though it's nasty when it gets wet, it still drains. I added no soil amendments to it. But I raised it up above the walkway, and so if there's a problem with drainage, it just naturally will drain out. So you need to have proper soil drainage, and you can achieve that literally with any soil. So third law is water. Now, very important. You can use any kind of source of water as long as it's clean, non-toxic water. When we moved here to this property, we got water rights, And I walked out front a few days after we moved here, and my neighbor, who's kind of maintaining the irrigation canal, was out there, and it was weed free, 100% weed free, all the way down. I could see down this water irrigation canal. And I said, wow, you really do a great job of keeping this weed free. How do you do that? And he said, with Roundup. So I decided right then that I was going to use well water for my garden and not irrigation water. And I was driving into town yesterday, and what did I see? I saw another commercial grower spraying the irrigation ditch with weed killer. That weed killer is going to come down that irrigation ditch in the water, and if you're using that for your vegetable garden, you could literally be killing your plants and you don't know why. So use clean water. Don't sprinkle above the plants, because you're going to get the weeds, the leaves wet. You're going to provide moisture. You're going to provide. You can get sun scald on the leaves. But primarily you'll get mold, fungus growing on the leaves, and you're going to create a very sick plant, an unhealthy environment for that. I had a friend in Texas who asked me to come over to her house and see what was wrong with her garden. She had. She was feeding it, and she was watering it, and she was trying to follow all the 6 laws. She had good temperature, but the problem was that her garden was on the north side of her house, so her house was shading the garden, and she was using rain birds to water her garden, and so her leaves were constantly wet, and her garden just totally failed. I told her she needed to move her garden. She was serious about her gardening. She did move her garden and had a very, very successful garden. So please don't sprinkle, overhead sprinkle. Besides that, you're just wasting a lot of water because you're watering the aisleways. With our watering system, we literally use half the amount of water as drip irrigation. I was doing a presentation in Utah, and we went to an engineer home, and he had previously been using drip irrigation on a meter. He was able to tell exactly how much water he was using in his garden. He switched over using the PVC watering system that's in the Midlife Gardening Course book. Super cheap to build. Super cheap to build. And he was able to tell on his meter that he was using half the amount of water using this method than using drip irrigation. Now, like I said at the very beginning of this, I don't really care how you garden. If you want to use drip tape, that's fine. If you want to use sprinklers, that's fine. I'll just tell you what I told my sons when they were at home mowing the lawn. And I said, I don't care how you mow the lawn. You can use tweezers. You can use goats. You can use little lawn clippers. You can use a lawnmower. I don't really care, but this is the result that I want. And then this is what I recommend. And so I provided a lawnmower for them. And it was their choice whether they used a goat, tweezers, or lawnmower. But at the end of the day, this is how I wanted the lawn to look. So it doesn't make any difference to me how you grow your food, but I am going to make some recommendations so you can have the highest yields, the least amount of work, the highest nutrition at the lowest cost. All right, so we're going to use clean water. It doesn't have to be potable water. In other words, you may not be able to drink it, but it would be fine for your plants. Don't sprinkle. We talked about that wastes water and helps the bugs and the weeds and the diseases. I highly recommend that you water early in the morning. So right now, I am watering at 7 a.m. for 2 minutes in 2 of my boxes, and for 1 minute in another box, because we're growing in 3 boxes right now this year. And that was working great, but about a week ago, it started getting hot here, and I started noticing that my plants were wilting at 1 o'clock, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So now I water in the morning at 7 a.m. and in the afternoon at 1 p.m., an hour before they start wilting, because a wilting plant is a dying plant. And so your plants will tell you whether they need water and how much water they need. So just look at your plants. I highly recommend you use the automatic watering system. If you watch some of my videos here on my YouTube channel, you'll see that I actually have my watering system on a sprinkler timer, so it's automatic. All right, number 5. This is where I see most people struggle in the gardens. They may have the right temperature, they may have the right amount of water, they may have the right amount of sunlight, and so forth, but they don't have the right nutrition. Now we know that plants need 16 nutrients. They get the 3 from the air that we mentioned, and they need 13 from the soil. So in the comments, I'd just like to see if you are giving your plants right now in your gardens, if you're giving them nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, are you giving your plants those fertilizers right now? Let me see if I can get over here to the comment section. Where's the comment section? Okay. And let's see if we got comments over here. Yes, please comment if you're giving your plants nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Those are called the major or macro ingredients. Those are really what we need for just to sustain barely, alive. All right. So the next, what we call secondary nutrients are calcium, sulfur, and magnesium. So what that means by secondary nutrients is that you need less of them, but they're still essential. Now, when I say essential, that's life-sustaining. If you don't have these nutrients in your plants will dramatically suffer. They'll be weak. They'll attract insects. They won't produce quality fruit. They won't produce a high nutrition food. Now, the really important ones, these are all very important, but the really important ones are the micronutrients, the zinc, the boron, the manganese, the iron, the copper, the chloride, and the molybdenum. Okay, those are incredibly important. A few years ago, I had an alfalfa gardener, a commercial grower, visiting my garden. He couldn't believe the health of the plants, and I was talking to him about these 16 nutrients that plants need, the 3 that they get from the air, and these 13. And I asked him how much molybdenum he applied per acre. And he looked at me and said, "What's molybdenum?" Now, from what I understand, what I know about molybdenum is that, unfortunately, since this commercial grower obviously was not using molybdenum because he didn't know what it was, and he had been growing alfalfa for 20 years, that he was getting 3 harvests a year. He could have gotten 4 harvests a year, and those 4 harvests could have been 25% more in higher yield, which would produce also higher protein if he had simply used molybdenum. So because he was wanting to get his best return on his investment, he was simply using nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but he could have actually increased his income and his yield by 25% if he had been using these micronutrients. Now, the problem with the zinc, boron, manganese, iron, copper, chloride, and molybdenum is they're very difficult to get, and they're very expensive to get. I mean, you can get NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, just by going down to the hardware store or the big box store. Calcium is no problem. That's going to be calcium. It's going to be rocks. It's I forget what it's called. Magnesium, you can get that. That's Epsom salts. But the zinc, the boron, the manganese, the iron, copper, zinc, so forth is very difficult. So what I have done is I'm actually make the LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix. And you can see in this mix here that we include the magnesium, the zinc, the boron, the manganese, the iron, the copper, the molybdenum, and so forth. Now, last week I mentioned on our call with my son, which I highly recommend that you watch on how to prepare for the coming global reset, that I mentioned that molybdenum was $1,000 a pound. I misspoke. It was $1,000 per 100 pounds last year. This year, when I went and bought all these micronutrients, secondary nutrients and micronutrients, and mixed them together, the molybdenum was $1,250 per 100 pounds. So just in a 12-month period, it has gone up 25%. I'm getting less for this. I'm paying 25% more because I bought the same amount, but I'm getting 25% less for my dollar. So everything's going to be getting more expensive and less available. I highly recommend that you get as many of these as possible that you can financially afford. If you get 8 packages of these, I actually pay for the shipping for free. And if you include the Mint Ladder Gardening Course book, I will put that in the same package, absolutely free, no shipping. Just pay for the book. I will pay for the shipping for all of these for you when you get 8 packages or more. So what we found was that that most plants that I see don't have diseases. What they really have are nutrient deficiencies. Now, my wife is a certified master gardener. She's been a certified master gardener for, she's been gardening for 30 years, struggled, worked really, really hard as a gardener, decided that she really didn't understand everything. So she went, and while we were in Texas, she took the Master Gardening Certification course, became certified in that, and still had difficulties with her garden. And that's when I started researching different gardening methods, because I wanted to help my wife, because she was literally spending 6, 7, 8 hours a day out in her garden, and she had a beautiful garden, but she was working herself to death. And I just thought that is a very good return on your investment. So I was trying to figure out what was the problem there. And that's when I came across these 6 laws of plant growth. So what she thought were diseases in her garden were really nutrient deficiencies. So let me just talk about that. There's plenty of nutrients in basically every soil on the planet. The problem is that those nutrients are not available to the plant. So an average acre of corn literally removes per season 240 pounds of nitrogen, 90 pounds of phosphate, 180 pounds of potash or potassium, 25 pounds of sulfur, 40 pounds of magnesium, 50 pounds of calcium, 2.5 pounds of iron, 2 pounds of manganese, 1 pound of boron, half a pound of zinc, and a tenth of a pound of copper. Is the 240 pounds of nitrogen, or I mean, let's put this, is the 50 pounds of calcium as important as the 240 pounds of nitrogen? Is the half pound of zinc that it pulls out of the soil or needs as important as the 240 pounds of nitrogen? Yes, it absolutely is. If you've got all the calcium, magnesium, and the niacin and the vitamin C and so forth that your body needs, but you don't have any iron, you're going to be sick or you're going to be dead. So you need to have the proper amount in the proper balance. So this is what my wife was using in her garden. This is all in a 100% organic garden. We've got the organic fertilizer down here, and then we have the dry molasses that she was making for the compost tea. Then we've got the the ocean harvest, the sea emulsion, and then we've got the seaweed over here. And these are all supposed to be, very high in all these different nutrients, super expensive, all 100% organic. She wanted to make sure that she was organic, and so she wasn't buying any commercially, or what we call commercial fertilizers. So a lot of very, very expensive, a lot of work, and still had nutrient deficiencies and problems with bugs, problems with diseases, and what we thought were diseases in her garden. Now, the problem with using these items is that we do need to feed our plants accurately and regularly. The problem is that when we're using organic nutrients, those organic nutrients are not bioavailable to the plant. So the plant, when you put in seaweed compost or you put in organic fertilizer, that plant is getting zero nutrition from that. And this was kind of eye-opening situation for me. But our plants cannot consume organic matter. It has to be inorganic. So when you're putting all that in the soil, you're actually not feeding the plants, but you are feeding something, and you're feeding the bacteria. And so the bacteria in the soil, you hear the saying, feed the soil, feed the plant. Well, we actually just go right to feeding the plant. Okay, and then when the plant is healthy, the plant actually excretes nutrients back into the soil for the bacteria. So we focus on the production and the health of the plant, and the plant helps the soil. If you're just feeding your plants nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, then that's not going to happen. That life cycle isn't going to happen. But when you feed them all the nutrients that they need, they will actually build their environment and make it stronger. So in order to get the nutrients from the organic fertilizers, and if you want to use organic fertilizers, that's perfectly fine, but you have to understand there's a process that goes through. And it's actually it's a chemical process. The organic fertilizer you put into the soil are being eaten by the bacteria in the soil. They digest it, they poop it out, then it's in the inorganic format, and then it's absorbed by the plants. So what we do is we just bypass that whole process because we're depending on the bacteria. Now, Roundup kills bacteria. That's what it is. It kills bacteria. So if you've got overspray from your neighbor, or you've been using these pesticides, herbicides in the past, you may not have that micro life in the soil that you need if you're using organic fertilizer. So we just use natural fertilizer, mineral-based fertilizer to feed the plants that are immediately biodegradable to the plant. So my wife was really interested in making sure that she was growing organically. You may know of J.I. Rodale. He was the father of the organic movement, and he said organic means without pesticides. And he said, you can see down below here, he said, a plant can't tell the difference between nitrogen from a leaf and that from a fertilizer bag. So he's against using bagged fertilizer. He's against using pesticides. Well, how do you stop using pesticides? You grow healthy plants. That's how you do it. Now, I know when I go to the hospital and someone's sick or even on their deathbed, there's a different feeling in the air, a different energy in the air. And when someone's vibrant and healthy, and there's a lot of energy in the air. And the same thing happens with plants. If they're stressed because of lack of nutrition, they're going to actually have negative energy in the air, which will attract the pests, attract the insects who are there to take care of the sick and the dying and the disease, to get rid of them. But if you're feeding the plants healthy food that's immediately available to them, then those pests are literally repelled from the plants, and you don't have to worry about using pesticides. We don't use pesticides in our garden. Okay, so to give you an example, iron is on the periodic chart. It's an element, and all elements are on the periodic chart, and all fertilizers that we use are on the elemental chart here. For example, would you consider iron a chemical, a mineral, or a nutrient? Where it really depends whether you're a chemist, a geologist, or a doctor, because really iron, it can be a nutrient, is a nutrient, it is a mineral, and it is a chemical. It just depends on how you call it. But a rose by any other names is still a rose. It's still elemental. You can't create it. It's essential for life. And whether it comes in a bag or out of bacteria poop, it doesn't make any difference to the plant. What does make a difference to the plant is if it's getting the right amount and the right ratio. For example, when you eat a carrot, does your body see an orange stick thing here? Or does it see really the vitamin A and the riboflavin, the calcium, the sodium, and the zinc, and so forth? Yes, your body is actually seeing the minerals, the nutrients in the carrot, not the object itself. And so your body literally is a chemical processing plant. And so if you're feeding your body Twinkies, it's looking at all the toxic chemicals that's going in there and trying to get those out of the body. If you're feeding your body healthy things, it's going to process that and make your body healthy. So what happens if you don't have the right nutrients? For example, if you probably have seen tomatoes like this that have this hard, dark, crusty bottom here, and this is called blossom end rot disease. It is not a disease. It's a nutrient deficiency. It's deficient in calcium. That's gypsum. That's all that is. It's gypsum or limestone, what I couldn't remember a couple minutes ago. It's rock. It needs rock. All of the minerals that God put on this earth, he put in rock form. And so when you're buying a bag of fertilizer, what they've done is simply removed all the toxic stuff that's in the environment and left you just clean calcium or clean iron or clean manganese or whatever it is. So when you see this on your plant, you know to give it calcium. Okay? So you just go down and you buy a bag of lime or you buy a bag of gypsum depending on your rainfall level in your area. And how to determine that is you just look here in the Mittleider Gardening Course book, and I'll tell you if you've got 20 inches or more of rain a year, then you're going to use lime. And if you have 20 inches or less than 20 inches of rain on average a year, then you're going to use gypsum. So in Texas, I use lime for my calcium, and in Idaho, I use gypsum. Do I ever see this on my tomatoes? No. Why? Because I feed them calcium before they ever have that deficiency. Have you ever seen your plants like this? This is a leaf from a tomato plant. This is a magnesium deficiency. It's yellowing between the veins of the plant. That indicates magnesium. All you need to do, once you're able to identify the problem here, is give it Epsom salts. Go down to Sam's Club or Walmart or Costco or whatever, buy some Epsom salts, follow the directions in here in the book and how much to give it. We actually mix that into the weekly plant food so it gets the right amount. But when you see this, you know it's not water, you know it's not disease, you know it's not whatever, you know it's magnesium, because right here in the Mittleider Gardening Course book, turn to page 164, I believe. Yes, and here it says, how do I recognize common deficiencies? And this is the section that I have gone through over and over and over again, and it shows me exactly a nitrogen deficiency, what that looks like, and then the solution to how to take care of when I have a nitrogen deficiency. Potassium, calcium, magnesium, boron, and so forth. It shows you what it tells you what the symptoms are on the plant, and then tells you how much to apply to get rid of that problem. All right, so what we have here is what's called the Mittleider pre-plant nutrient mix. And what you do is you take either lime or gypsum, 40 pounds, you take 2 pounds of Epsom salt and a half a pound of 20 mule team borax, and that you mix into the soil before you ever plant. So when your plants start growing, first of all, this helps with root growth because of the calcium, but when they start growing, they have all the calcium, the magnesium, and the boron in the soil, so you can minimize or avoid that deficiency altogether. Now, what I have done in the last 10 years, I've noticed a trend with my tomatoes and peppers and my eggplant. And so I put in this pre-plant mix once a month so to preempt the problem of having blossom end rot or having on my tomatoes or my peppers and so forth. So you can pick all this stuff up locally at your big box store, pharmacies, and so forth. All right, and the recipe is in the Mittleider Gardening Course book, MGC. It's lesson 5 on fertilizers. All right, so potassium, one of the big 3. This is what potassium looks like. Now, you can see here on this leaves, this is a really typical way of seeing a potassium deficiency. It looks like it's not getting enough water, but you could water this literally to death and it would not change that, because this is not a dehydration problem, it's a potassium deficiency problem. And how do I know that? Because I just looked in the book, saw that what the problem was, added more potassium, and it took care of the problem. Now, because the edges of these leaves here are dead, those will not recover with potassium deficiencies, but the new leaves, okay, will not have that, and that way you know you've taken care of that deficiency. So what I'm really trying to do here is teach you how to be a plant doctor. When you go to a doctor, the doctor looks for symptoms and then hopefully gives the appropriate diagnosis and appropriate treatment. And that's exactly what you do in your garden. This is absolutely critical. You could have a greatly diminished quality of production, quality of fruit, quality of nutrition, because you aren't able to identify the deficiency that you have. Just turn to page 164 in the book and start going through that section. It covers all the 16 essential nutrients and what to do and how to identify them. So this is manganese deficiency over here on the left and molybdenum deficiency over here on the right. Iron deficiency. Now, you notice that this is yellow. Well, people say, well, I thought yellow meant a nitrogen deficiency. Well, there's actually 7 different shades of yellow on a plant. Those are all discussed in the Mitt Gardening course book. So you can tell if your blueberries need iron, or if your blueberries need magnesium, or if your strawberries need magnesium, or if they need more iron, or any of the other nutrients that they might need. Zinc deficiency. These need very, very little of the iron and the zinc, but without them, you can see a catastrophic effect on the plant. All right, so how do you get all those micronutrients? Well, you go to the ldsprepperstore.com and you order the LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix. Now, you can get the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all those major ingredients at the store, and you can use 19-19-19, which would be nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. You can use 16-16-16. You can use 13-13-13. I wouldn't go any less than, I prefer using 19-19-19, but I wouldn't go any less than 13-13-13. And I show that here on the bag. And then I show you how to mix it with the Epsom salts and the 10-ounce packet of the micronutrients. This is all the micronutrients that are very expensive and very difficult to get. So I include that in the package. It's already pre-weighed and measured for you. You just put it in and mix it together. And I show you here on the label how to add it to your garden, how to add it to your trees, how to add it to your flowers, how to use it with your seedlings. We use it in a solution, water solution with your seedlings. And it's very inexpensive. This is what I use in addition to the 19-19-19 Epsom salts to grow my produce. And that's why I'm able to grow $4 tomatoes for $2 a pound. All right, so how did I come to this? Well, I mentioned that my wife was a master gardener. She still is. And this is our backyard in Texas. And so I started doing experimenting. We had my wife's organic garden over here. Then we were also running the lasagna garden. I had the bucket garden over here. I had a hydroponic garden. I had the Back to Eden garden. And I had put in my Mitt garden here. This is my very, very first year. You can see that here. And right here on the corner of our garden shed, I could literally see the cabbage growing over here in the Back to Eden garden, the cabbage growing over here in the Mitt garden, the cabbage growing in the hydroponic and the bucket garden and lasagna garden and the organic garden. Literally, my backyard was a laboratory, and I was testing all these in the same environment, same weather, same air, same water, and just following the instructions for each one of those. And the results are mind-blowing, okay? Now, the reason why you see all these arrows here, because my wife, as a master gardener, I knew nothing about gardening. I was just following instructions for each of these garden methods. And she absolutely put a foot down and says, do not come near my garden, this organic garden. So I had this other area in the rest of our backyard as these test gardens. Well, what happened? My wife loves beets. And so every year she plants 100 or so beet seeds, and then she germinates them and she puts them in the garden. This particular year, she had more beets than transplants than she had space. So she reluctantly gave me some beets and said, do you want to try this in your sand and sawdust, no nutrient garden? And I said yes. So we harvested these on the same day. This beet came from my wife's traditional organic garden. with the fish emulsion and the seaweed extract and the organic fertilizer and the compost tea, and the 6 to 8 hours a day. And this over here came from my Mittleider garden, where I'd come out once a week, fertilize it with the weekly feed, had it on the automatic watering system. It didn't make any difference what kind of soil I was growing in, because we were not dependent on the soil to feed the plants. Now, in my wife's organic garden, she built boxes like I did, but we brought in very expensive soil. I paid $1,000 for what I call this designer garden soil, and it had 3/8-inch screen compost leaves and all this sand and all this other stuff. And I said, honey, why is this soil $1,000? She says, because it's really good. I said, what makes it really good? She says, it's really good. I said, well, what's in it that makes it really good? Oh, I don't know. It's just really, really good. And to me, dirt should be dirt cheap. Okay? You can literally get the same yield in just regular dirt, regardless of the quality of the dirt, if you're giving the plant the nutrients it needs by giving it the weekly plant food made with all the nutrients in it, and you don't have to have the plant depend on getting the nutrients from the soil. So she was blown away with how little I worked in my garden and the yield that I was getting. I was literally outproducing her 6 to 1. For every pound of produce that she was harvesting, I was harvesting 6 pounds. Now, comparing this to the Back to Eden garden, this is my second year in the Back to Eden garden. You can tell that this broccoli has gone to seed. This is some lip balm that we make from our our bee wax, and this little case that I have to give you a comparison. This little plant here had gone to seed because it was that was done. And this is the no-till, no fertilize, no water, barely any yield kind of garden. And I compared this broccoli to about 20 feet away to my Mittleider garden over here. Same day, the plants were planted the same day, the photographs were taken the same day, and the yield is completely different. So yes, plants will grow. Here's another, what looks like a great cabbage in the Back to Eden garden, until you compare it to the cabbage grown in the Mittleider garden, and then it was such a dramatic difference. I actually harvested one of them, put it over, it looks like I harvested both of them, and put them side by side. Okay? This is after building up the soil in the Back to Eden garden for 2 years, and this is in the sand and sawdust after a 2-month-old soil. Huge difference. Same light, same water, same air. The difference was the nutrients. And this plant here is just literally starving to death. You wouldn't know the difference if you didn't see the difference. And that's why having all those different garden methods going at the same time in my backyard was so beneficial to me and eye-opening to my wife. And people say, well, I have a great garden with my horse manure or with my sheep manure or whatever. Compared to who? Okay? Your plants are going to live because God made them to want to live. But could you be getting 3 times the size, 3 times the harvest, 3 times the nutrients, or 10 times the nutrients? Here's another cabbage, beautiful cabbage in the Mittleider gardening box. This is my first year growing sugar snap peas in Texas, and this is my first day harvesting those sugar snap peas. Just bursting with flavor and just amazing, juicy, it's hard to describe how flavorful they are. Here's an example of the automatic watering system PVC pipe there. And here we have our softball size sweet onions growing in here. Okay, clusters of tomatoes. You can see I'm growing these tomatoes vertically, like I mentioned earlier, so we get a much more yield in the same square foot. First time I had ever grown peppers. Beautiful, beautiful plants. No pesticides, no herbicides. Simply come out once a week, feed them with the Mittleider weekly feed, water them daily as needed, and harvest them at the peak of harvest. Here's some more vertical growing here. You can see right here is a cantaloupe. We actually grow our cantaloupe vertical. Right now in our garden, we've got vertically growing cantaloupe, vertically growing squash. Actually, everything I'm growing is growing vertically this year. Here's cucumbers over here. Here's the peppers I was just showing you. And here's a close-up. Beautiful 4-pound melon here. And the plant will actually support that melon hanging in the air. And when the melon gets ripe, in this case the muskmelon or the cantaloupe, it actually slips from the vine. And I walk out there in the morning and I have this beautiful ripe melon. I don't even have to thump it or test it because I know because it slipped off the vine that is ready to eat. And here are some of our favorite watermelons we like to grow. I think these are called sugar babies. They get about 6 pounds. You can see this dangling off the plant right here. And that plant will be able to hold that watermelon. And this one here is growing on the ground. Huge, beautiful, delicious produce. I just want to show you this here as a good example. You see this it's kind of scarring here, and you see this here on the leaves. This will look familiar to you in these spots here because this is a magnesium deficiency. And I was able to identify that. And so you look at the new leaves back here and you don't see those problems. And you see where this cucumber was curling and then it straightened out and there's no more scarring. That's because I noticed the deficiency, looked it up in the Mint Lighted Gardening course book, gave it an extra dose of magnesium. The plant perked up, it snapped out of the deficiency, and it grew beautiful, beautiful cucumbers. The only thing I knew about cucumbers when I was growing up in my dad's garden is that they were bitter and curled. If he would have just been able to identify that it was a magnesium deficiency, we were using 100% cow manure at the time, he could have just given it magnesium and taken care of it. So if you're using cow manure, that's perfectly fine, but if you be able to identify that deficiency and give it the nutrients that it needs. Okay, that's all I'm saying here. So my wife is over working in her garden 6 to 8 hours a day, giving it all these organic fertilizers. I'm over in my Mint Lighted garden once a week with the Mint Lighted weekly feed and watering automatically with the watering. And I'm out in my garden on Monday, and I look over at my wife, and she's got a can of the Mint Lighted weekly plant food in her organic garden. And I didn't say anything. I just grabbed my camera I grabbed my phone, took the documentary photo that she was using the weekly feed in her organic garden, and put the phone away. That night, she asked me at dinner if I could teach her how to make the weekly feed so she could use it in her garden. This is my first year gardening. She had been gardening for, at that time, 30 years. Every year. And I said, absolutely, I'll be glad to share that with you, honey, but I have to ask, why, when you were so against this gardening method, because I was just growing in sand and sawdust and I was using, commercial fertilizers, why are you interested in gardening this way? She said, because you work so much less than I do. And so I had no pesticides, I had no herbicides, I had no insect problems, I had no diseases. When I saw a deficiency, I was able to identify it and take care of it. And she was struggling, and literally in her garden, we were growing $5 tomatoes per tomato. That's what it was costing us to grow tomatoes, and I was growing them for 2 cents a pound. So I taught her how to make the weekly feed. She started applying it to her garden, and her kale absolutely exploded. So what I'm saying is, regardless of how you're gardening right now, start today and start feeding your plants what they need and making sure you're following the 6 laws of plant growth with the light and the temperature and the water and the air and the nutrition. And we'll get to the 6th law here in a minute. Her lettuce just absolutely went crazy. We couldn't eat enough lettuce. We couldn't give it enough of it to the neighbors. We should have had rabbits. I mean, it just exploded. She brought me out, grabbed me by the hand one day, and dragged me out to her spinach patch. And she said, 2 days ago, this whole patch was covered with aphids. I gave it the weekly feed and figured I'd come out here and spray it with an herbicide. I came out here to spray it with, a pesticide. Came out here to spray it in her organic garden, and all of the aphids were gone. She was blown away. And the reason she realized that her plants were sending out that negative energy because they were stressed because they didn't have the right nutrients. As soon as they got the right nutrients, they sweetened up. Literally, they sweetened up. The bugs don't like that sweet plant flavor. They like the bitter flavor. And the aphids literally left the garden. That, I think, was the moment that she was 100% converted. Do you want high yield, amazing fruit? This is not a grape cluster. That is a blackberry that she picked from that garden. After having years of tiny little blackberries, she started feeding it the Mint Lighter weekly feed and started getting great harvest. This is a strawberry. We get those strawberries all day long. We're harvesting our strawberries from March through November here in Idaho in our greenhouse. Big, beautiful, amazingly flavorful strawberries. You can't buy this strawberry in the store because they're just feeding it NPK. They're not giving it all the nutrients that it needs to be rich and full flavor and nutrients. When you feed a tomato the proper nutrients, it will make over 10,000 phytonutrients that your body immediately absorbs and use to build your body. If you want to have gorgeous ornamental or fruit trees, use the weekly feed. Don't use it every week with them because they're slower growing. What you do, and this is actually on this package, I've included this in writing on the package, is that you feed the plants your trees 4 times a year. You do it when you see the first budding, so when they come out of dormancy. Then you feed it when you see the first blossom, so the fruit blossom. Then you feed it again when you see the fruit form, and then you feed it again before the end, before it goes back into dormancy. And you give it the instructions are on here. 1 ounce of the weekly feed. Let's see, trees. 1 ounce per 1 inch of tree trunk for the weekly feed, and 2 ounces of the pre-plant mix per 1 inch of tree diameter. And you do that 4 times a year. So again, it's right on the package here. So just feed the plants that you want to be healthy and strong. You want the most vibrant, beautiful flowers. I was over taking care of my bees a few weeks ago, and I saw somebody else had just put some beehives out. So I stopped by as a fellow beekeeper and introduced myself. He says, "Yeah, I'm new to beekeeping. This is my first year." And we built up a conversation and built up a friendship. And I found out that his wife sells flowers commercially. And so I invited him over to our garden. They saw what we were doing in our garden. They bought the LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix. They went back, and I dropped by their house yesterday, day before yesterday, and she was blown away on how beautiful her flowers were compared to all the years that she's been growing commercial flowers. She was blown away on the new growth on her pepper plants and her tomato plants, where they were using, I believe it was chicken manure or something like that on her plants before. They were getting some nutrients, but how much molybdenum is in chicken manure or cow manure or horse manure or in seaweed extract or organic fertilizer? How much manganese, how much copper, how much zinc? So when she fed her plants what they needed to be strong and healthy, they just are that strong and healthy. When I first came across the Mint Lighter gardening method, we were in Texas. My wife was going through her master gardening course. She suggested that we have a comparison garden, so we actually built some beds here and started growing plants actually at the master gardening gardens. We actually grew all the seedlings ourselves. We took half of them, gave them to the master gardeners. They planted them in their 20-year-old custom soil that they had built up over 20 years. Then we took the other half plants, put it in our sand and sawdust mix. We did a nutrient soil test on both of them. The 20-year-old organic soil just it was off the charts on every possible great nutrient that you needed in the soil. Of course, the sand and sawdust had basically nothing in it. We outproduced them 5-1 and never had to spray for pesticides or herbicides. And this aisle here with this gentleman on the right behind him is the other garden. Okay? And Lynn, the master gardener who was running this comparison gardens, now teaches the Mint-Lighted gardening method and uses the Mint-Lighted gardening method for high yield, low weed, low work, low water, high nutrition growing food as if your life depends on it. Okay, the sixth and final law here is competition. You want to make sure that you're controlling the weeds. One way of controlling the weeds is by not using overhead watering and by not using animal manures that have weed seeds in them. Okay, so just don't use them. You don't have to worry about E. coli. You don't have to worry about family dying from E. coli. You don't have to worry about this weed seeds. So don't overhead water and don't use manures. And you don't have to at least horse manures and cow manures. You don't have to worry about the weed seeds growing like crazy, because you're not literally, when you're bringing manure into your garden, you're actually bringing the weed seeds into your garden, and you're watering them because you're overhead watering. With our watering system, we water directly at the rate of the base of the plant, and so we're not watering the aisleways, and so we're not growing those weeds. But before you ever start, remove the annuals and the perennials from the soil. You till it and take care of those, and then afterwards, I probably spend maybe 5 minutes a week weeding, and I just do that with a two-way hoe. I just go through the aisles and hit them with the two-way hoe, and they're done. Because they're only like this big, right? And I just chop the heads off. Do that a couple times. That seed cannot get any photosynthesis, so it dies, and the problem's taken care of. Insects. Well, have nice wide walkways, 3.5-foot walkways, so you have lots of air and light between the plants, and keep the leaves off the plants. The best way to control the insects is to have healthy plants. Feed the plant, and the plant will literally repel the insects. Animals, here in Idaho, we have deer literally walk across our property every day, literally every single day. I see them on the security cameras, and it's like 5 deer at a time. So what do? To obey the 6th law of plant growth, we put up a 9-foot electric fence around our orchard because they were just jumping over our 6-foot fence. And so, yes, it doesn't make, we could have obey all the laws except for competition, and the deer would come in and ruin the whole orchard because we're not following all 6 laws. And disease, again, keep the leaves off the leaves off the ground. Feed the plants so that they're healthy, so they're not weak and are susceptible to diseases. All right. Well, what do you do regardless of how you're planting, how you're growing today? Start today at any level that you're at. You can start having an amazing garden, just like my friend who grows flowers professionally, and who is growing tomatoes and onions for their tomatoes and peppers for the family. They were already well into the season when they started feeding their plants with the weekly plant food made from the LDS Pepper Premium Micronutrient Mix. They saw a huge difference in their health of the plants. So you can do it in soil beds like I showed you before. You can do it in boxes like in here. This is a picture of used to be a backyard lawn that was converted to a garden, and there's their daughter right there. So you can literally, and like we did in Texas, literally transform your backyard lawn into a food forest and literally be growing food for your family. Okay, this lady is growing in Alaska. Look at those cabbages. This is when you're obeying the first law of plant growth and nutrition and watering. She's feeding them the weekly plant food. This is the kind of yield that you can get if you obey those 6 laws, even with no amendments. And she's growing just in the dirt, as you can see there. This is the picture I showed you at the beginning. This is one morning's harvest from our garden here. Yes, when we use this in addition with our food storage, we could literally live and grow food as if our life depends on it. This is a tomato from that harvest year. Big beef tomato. It's one of our favorite tomatoes. This isn't even the biggest tomato that we harvested that year. I'm people that said you're growing Franken tomatoes because they're comparing it to the nutrient starved tomatoes that taste like cardboard that they see at the store, not tomatoes that are fed properly and cared for properly. And this is helping the plant grow to its fullest potential, and it's just amazing what you can get. I mentioned that I was growing squashes vertically. This is in our garden, and I'm showing you the very first year that we're growing in Idaho. We used the exact same laws that we were using in Texas, and we just applied it in Idaho, even though we had 200 less days of growing season. But you can see the spaghetti squash growing here. You can see the pumpkins growing here, all growing vertically. So out of these two boxes right here, we yielded 2,000 pounds of produce. So these three things are essential for you to grow food as if your life depends on it. These are the three things I wanted to show you. The LDS Pepper Premium Micronutrient Mix. Again, when you buy 8 of these, I pay for the shipping myself out of my own pocket. And if you're smart and you don't have one of these, go ahead and put that in with your order with your micronutrients, with your 8 micronutrients. I'll include that together, and you get free shipping on everything. If you just need the book, order the book. It's just $5 for shipping. But you're going to need some great seeds. Again, this is the seed bank that I recommend right here. Let me just open up the seed bank for you. See if I can do that without hurting my arm. This is made by some great Christian people. They have a little Christian book in here. They have some instructions. They have how to use the seed bank in here. This particular one is the lock box. This is the one that I get for my family. And it tells you exactly how to use them, what's inside the seeds, peas and peppers and squash. There's a list of all the items that are inside these boxes here. But, on ldspepperstore.com. But this seed package is literally packed to the top with thousands of seeds. And so what we do is we actually take the seed out when we're planting. Say, for example, we want to plant some basil. We open up this package. We take the seeds that we want to plant. We put them in the seedling flat. We seal this back up. We put it back in the box. We put it in our basement where it's cool and dry, and we seal it back up. And the one reason I really like about this is that it's mouse-proof. You're not going to have any mice eating through that lid. And I like that the bags are plastic bags. So if there's any humidity issues, they're not going to get moist, which triggers the germination. So you don't have to worry about that. So I like the way they package them. I like the variety of seeds that they have in there. Again, those are all heirloom seeds. You can get them at ldspepperstore.com. They have several different sizes. You will need to pay shipping on these. These are quite heavy. So even if you get the micronutrient packages and the book sent for you and I pay for the shipping, there is shipping on the seeds. All right. So when you go to the LDS Pepper Store, don't forget to stop by and take a look at the self-defense products I have over there. I forgot to bring this over. Let me bring this here. It's my mission in life to help every woman have self-defense items. Here's a great flashlight. You've seen me maybe talk about this before. It's very lightweight, made out of airplane aluminum, very high quality. But not only is it a flashlight, so you have that when you're walking outside with your dog, but it's also a self-defense weapon. Okay? So if you just need to make sure you get some distance between you and an attacker, this will do it. You can get this by clicking on this image here on my website where it says free self-defense products, and you can get that for free. They're just charging for shipping. So there's several items in there that I personally use and own, and one of them I highly recommend is this flashlight. So go ahead and grab that over at the LDS Prepper store. One very important announcement I wanted to make is I got 3 notifications from Berkey. I'm an authorized Berkey dealer. I got 3 notifications this week that Berkey is raising the prices on all of their systems starting July 1st. So if you have been thinking about getting a Berkey water filter system that costs 2 cents a gallon, that removes the viruses, the bacteria, the heavy metals, the pesticides, the herbicides, the pharmaceuticals, 99.9999999% of all the toxins in the water, now is the time to come over to LDS Prepper Store and get the Berkey water filtration system. Either get a big Berkey or get a Royal Berkey, or a Travel Berkey. One is 1.5 gallons, the big Berkey. The Travel Berkey is 1.5 gallons, the big Berkey is 2.5 gallons, and the Royal is 3.5 gallons. They have been out of stock for a month at the manufacturer. They came in this week and they sold out yesterday. So they had them there for about, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, half the way through Friday. They'll be getting more in next week. So it's first in, first out. Come here, don't waste any time. Get your Berkey system, get in the queue so you're the front of the queue, and as soon as they have them in inventory, your order will be shipped to you. Don't wait on this. They no longer make the Crown or the Imperial due to supply chain issues. So just get yourself a Travel, a Big Berkey, or a Royal. So take advantage of that. But down here, you'll see in the gardening section, you'll be able to get the LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix, and then you'll also see the heirloom seeds there too. So I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that you are able to grow food as if your life depends on it. I'm going to the chat box here is just going crazy. Thank you very much for your comments. I'm going to go through these here real quickly. If you like what you've seen here, please give me a thumbs up. There's a link below this video to the LDS Prepper store. I'm also going to be putting a link down there with these 6 laws in a single sheet that you can just print out, and I'll have a link down there later for you so you understand those 6 laws and how to follow them. All right, let's see if we have any. We got lots of chatting here. Hello from Texas. I've been looking forward to this. I have a garden every year, but not very intensively. I always use heirloom seeds, etc. Horse manure is my main fertilizer. That's great. If you see a deficiency that there isn't enough molybdenum or manganese or copper or whatever in that horse manure, use the Mint Ladder Gardening Course book, identify what that symptom is, and then just add it. Okay. If you're going to be using manures, what I recommend is that you put them in the fall, till them into the soil, let the strength, the what they call the heat from the fertilizer to kind of mellow out during the winter, and then plant in the spring on that. Hello from Northeast Tennessee. I grow up both in the ground and with the Mint Ladder Gardeners hydroponic MLP Gardeners hydroponic system on the side deck using kitty litter buckets. Awesome. Hello from Michigan. Congratulations. Hello from Orange County. Welcome. My main issue in Middle Georgia is squash vine borers. Okay, so let me talk about squash vine borers for you. This is my key. A squash vine borer usually is a black and yellow or black and red moth kind of looking insect. As soon as you see that, or if you kind of know when that insect starts flying around, you want to spray your plants with an organic pesticide called BT. It's Bacterius thermomaximus or something like that. Anyway, you want to get the liquid form. Go down to a garden center, not a big box store. Go to a garden center and say, I need some BT for worms. And they'll know exactly what you want. You get yourself a little portable sprayer bottle. I usually use a 1 gallon or 2 gallon bottles. You put some of that BT in there, And once a week from then on, if you will spray your plants, especially your squash plants, that will kill the worm that grows from the egg that moth lays. So as soon as you see that moth, or if you know when it comes, start spraying that, and you'll save your plants. That will end the vine borer problem. Once you have a vine borer inside your squash, it's hard to overcome. I'm in Texas and I have yet to garden, but yes, as you say, today is the day. Yes, today is the day. Please, you're not going to be able to grow enough food your first year gardening because you're still figuring it out. You're figuring out the watering. You're figuring out you got to till the soil. You got to get things prepped. Please, please, please start today. Regardless of where you are in the gardening season, get started today. Get the nutrients you need. Get the step-by-step gardening. In my opinion, the gardening Bible, the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book, and learn how to garden as if your life depends on it. As a master gardener, my wife literally had over $1,000 worth of gardening books when we moved from Texas to Idaho. She donated all of them to Goodwill and kept this $25 book. That is the only gardening book that we have in our household now. All right. I put foil around the stems. I spray with BT, and the bastards still get into my squash plants. Yeah, make sure you start spraying that BT early enough. Okay, if they've already laid the eggs, there's really nothing you can do about it. I started my first small raised garden bed this year. Fingers crossed. Congratulations, SLC 15747. I'm growing tomatoes, green beans, zucchini, eggplants in pots. Awesome. Grow them any way you can. I had someone contact me last year. She says, I live in an apartment. How can I want to grow potatoes? I said, put them in pots and put them on the patio on a south-facing sun. And she sent me pictures all through the growing season. She did a fantastic job on growing food. I've seen people in China who live in these huge high-rises, and they're growing food on their balconies because it's there. They control it. They can touch it. If there's a food shortage, they're growing their own. So regardless of your situation, learn how to grow your own food. I only grow cherry tomatoes. I love cherry tomatoes. My best cherry tomato, my favorite cherry tomato is called the Sun Sugar. It's a yellow tomato. The birds don't eat it because it's yellow. They don't think it's ripe, but it's like eating candy. It's so amazing. I only grow cherry tomatoes now. The squirrels pick a big ripe beefsteak, take 2 bites, and throw it in the lawn. Yes. So I had, in Washington, we had a lot of squirrels, a lot of pine trees on a property, and squirrels were devastating the garden. I found that they really, really like rat poison. And so I didn't want to hurt them, I just wanted to kill them. And I put rat poison out, and that took care of the squirrel problem. And we were eating our tomatoes. Hello from Kentucky. Hi, Kathy. LDS Prepper, do you have a guide to pressure canning? I have almost 500 videos. I think it's 484 videos here on my YouTube channel. Just do a search on my YouTube channel, ldsprepper.com. Click the little magnifying glass and search for canning. Right? I need to change the screen here. There's no reason for me to be in the corner any longer. Okay, let me get back up here. And then Kathy says to Justin, get the Ball Blue book available on Amazon. Yes, that is, in my opinion, the best canning book available. The Ball Blue book for canning. Yes, very good. Thank you for that recommendation. So hot in Arizona to grow this time of year. Yes, so in Arizona, I grew up in Arizona. You're growing on in what we would consider the winter here. You're growing in the winter in Arizona, but you can still, and we still successfully grew in Arizona using shade cloth. So if you get again, it's all about the 6 laws: light and temperature and so forth, water. And so if you get plenty of water, you're controlling that temperature by using shade cloth. You get plenty of light in Arizona. It's not a problem. You can literally grow all the way through the summer, even in the heat, by using shade cloth and making sure you're watering 2 or 3 times a day. Hi, why are my peaches dropping off my peach tree? I don't really have enough information to answer that. but it could be that the tree is stressed, that it doesn't have enough nutrition, it doesn't have enough water, and so it's dropping the fruit to stay alive. It will do that as a self-preservation thing. So make sure that you're feeding it the weekly feed, as I mentioned, and as that is diagrammed here on the LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix on that schedule. Make sure you're giving it the pre-plant mix with the recipe in the Mint-Lighted Gardening Course book, and that you're watering your trees. I do have a video where I'm showing you how I planted my fruit trees in whiskey barrels, half whiskey barrels, and I'm using a self-wicking system. So my trees are getting all the nutrients they need because I put that in the soil with the weekly feed and the pre-plant mix, and then there's basically a water reservoir below that is pulled up through the soil. So you may want to check that out. Okay, yes. Doing all nutrients, awesome. Giving all three, good. 50% cow manure, compost, and 50% topsoil, working fine so far. Third year garden, awesome. Again, if you're seeing any deficiencies, and of course, I mean, there's no way that you know in organic fertilizer how much molybdenum or manganese or copper or zinc or nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium is in that. You just don't know. There's no way to control that. It depends on what the animal's eaten, the nutrient value of what it's eaten, and how much it already digested. It's probably going to take 80% of that into its own body, and you're going to get the rest out in the manure. If you see a deficiency, look at the LDS, looking at the Mint-Lighted Gardening Course book, section page 164, and find out what the deficiency is. Read what the solution is, and give it to your plants, and you're perfectly fine. The thing I like about the bag nutrients is that if I had to leave, if there was a flood or earthquake or fire, and I had to leave, and I know I was going to be gone for long term, I can take my seed bank, boom, grab it right here. All my seeds are right here in a safe container. I grab my micronutrient mix right here in these packages, and I grab my bucket of 19 and my bag of Epsom salts, and I'm growing food. Wherever I am, I'm growing food. So I like that it's portable. It's clean. It's very small to store. The micronutrients are all made out of rock. They're minerals, so they have an unlimited shelf life. They'll never wear out. They're good as long as you have them. And when you're ready to use them, you mix them up. Hi, everybody from Ventura County, California. Bought this book this week. Can't wait for it to arrive. Thanks for this and your programs, Dave and family. Thank you very much, Diana. Your book should be arriving today or tomorrow or Monday. Okay. Cindy says gypsum. Yes, depending on where you live. Oyster shells. Yes, oyster shells work for calcium. So do egg shells. The problem with that is it takes about 6 to 12 months for the calcium to be released from the oyster shells or the chicken eggs or quail eggs or animal eggs, duck eggs, whatever. So you're really not getting the plant the nutrients it needs for calcium in that season with the oyster shells and so forth. So if you want to be putting that in the fall and letting that decompose during the winter and be bioavailable to the plant in the spring, that's perfectly fine. But those plants need calcium. That's critical for root development. And as you saw for blossom end rot, get some gypsum, get some lime, and put that in the garden because that's immediately available to the plant. Okay. Midi Jeep says synthetic fertilizer. Yeah, that's what they're called. And it's called synthetic fertilizer. It's really not synthetic. It's just really, this is 100% rock. You understand that these are all these elements are elements and they come from rock. I think the reason why God put the minerals in rock is because they don't wash away, okay? You just grind them up and you can separate them through a process so you can get the nutrients that you need. So it's called synthetic fertilizers, but really it's just 100% rock. Watch out for the door. We got a windy day here and the door just slammed shut. Sorry. Twinkie Nation. Okay, thank you, sir. Please make sure you have plenty of mineral mix. Budgeted for it mid-month. Okay, thank you very much. I use eggshells for calcium and the banana skins to give calcium and potassium. Good. Just remember, you got to you got to calculate in that 6 to 12 month breakdown period before those nutrients are available. Will the Mittlighter pre-mix nutrient work in earth boxes? Yes, absolutely. When I use earth boxes, you can see some videos of mine in my bucket gardens, my automatic watering bucket garden system. I was using the Mittlighter pre-plant mix and the Mittlighter weekly feed. Yes, and that's what I'm using right now in the self-wicking buckets in the whiskey barrels, which is basically an earth box. Okay. Yes, definitely use those. Okay, I can't find anything other than 10-10-10 locally. Is there someplace to order online? Great question. Now, I had the same problem when I was in Texas. I couldn't find any. The best I could find was 11-11-11. And so I spent about 30-45 minutes on Google Maps, and I just looked up feed stores. And I was literally having to drive 40 minutes to a feed store, and then I was able to get 16-16-16. So if you're looking in the traditional retail stores, you may have a problem, but I guarantee you that you will be able to find it in a feed store and at probably half the price that you're paying in a big box store. So it is worth the effort to take a few minutes of your time and find the 13-13-13, the 16-16-16, or whatever you can find to give your plants the nutrients that they need. 10-10-10 is just, I mean, it may work. I don't recommend it, but you may have to fertilize instead of every 7 days, you may have to fertilize every 5 days to give it the nutrients that it needs. What I've done here in Idaho is that I'm literally surrounded by potato fields and commercial growers. So I went to the local fertilizer company and had them custom mix 2,000 pounds of 19-19-19 nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium for me. I got it in a great big 2,000 pound tote, had it put on a pallet. I brought it to my house, and I called up all my neighbors and said, I've got 19-19-19. It's at about, it was about 30 cents on the dollar for what they were paying for 13-13-13 at the local big box store. I sold all of what I wanted to sell in 20 minutes. I sold it to them at my cost, so I got all the 19-19-19 that I wanted for my 5-year food storage, for my fertilizer, because I try to keep a minimum 4 years of fertilizer and seeds and everything here. And I was able to help my neighbors get 19-19-19 also. So this could be life-sustaining. So if it's a little inconvenient for a few moments, I guarantee you the inconvenience is worth it. Wake up, I have seen another prepper who dehydrated the banana peelings and sun-dried the egg shells, then blended them in a blender food processor. Yeah, I'm sure that works. Again, you have to wait for that decomposition. Ordered from this guy website. Don't know what they're saying there. Let's see. That little rainbow thing in the lower left corner is covering up the text of the slides. I'm sorry. People do steal my intellectual property, so I have to put a branding on here because I have them stolen my property, so I have to put that brand there. Sorry, that's in the way. Yes, I'm still beekeeping and love it. I expect to get 500 pounds of honey this year. Just ordered the book and a pack of nutrients. Thank you very much. Best of success to you. I'll make sure I get that book signed for you. I use rabbit manure, excellent, and rabbit manure tea for most of my fertilizer. We don't eat rabbits. We keep them for their pet status and droppings. Excellent. Again, if you see deficiency, figure out what it is and take care of that. LO love bunnies. Molybdenum, yes, there is molybdenum. It's the most expensive ingredient in this whole mix here. Yes, it is absolutely outrageously expensive, but it can literally increase your yield by 25%, and it makes your plant healthy. So not only is it increasing your yield and your nutrition, but it's also repelling insects. Here in the Philippines, we make our own organic fertilizer using the urine from the child, watered down 10-1, and in big keeping handfuls of wood ash mixed in. Yes, so you're getting the nitrogen there, and you're getting the potash. So you're getting 2 out of the 16 nutrients. And literally, if you literally went out and urinated in your garden, it would help because of the nitrogen, because the soil is just so depleted in nutrients. Here in the U.S., you have the opportunity to not have to do that. You can actually get your own nutrients and make sure that your plants are getting all the nutrients that they need, because we eat our plants to get the nutrients from the plants. Well, we're not getting any nutrients from the plants if the plants can't uptake the nutrients. You can't create iron, copper, zinc, molybdenum, and so forth. Those are elements. You can't create those. You can't mix those. The plant can't create them. They have to consume them. And if you want to get those nutrients for yourself, you have to feed those plants. We also make our own organic pesticides with the leaves from the neem tree and my Vitamix. Yes, so neem oil is a great pesticide, organic pesticide for soft skinned bugs. Okay, because it actually suffocates them. Excited to get started. Just ordered my book and micronutrient packs. Thank you, brother, from KJV Mama. Let's see. It says, I could prove my garden techniques work. You can see my garden on my channel. Very good. Glad to hear that. Learning the garden is only half of what you have to learn to preserve your produce. Yes, that's why we have several videos on preserving, canning, food storage, and so forth. I'd highly recommend you watch those videos that my wife has put up and that we put up on preserving the food. We eat most of our food fresh. We refrigerate it. We will freeze it so we can eat it later. Or we grow a lot of winter squashes that we can eat during the winter. Let's see. I have Imperial Berkey. Great. Let's see. I think I scrolled. There's so many comments here. I think I just scrolled past a whole bunch of them. Let's see. Here we go. Are those seeds undetermined or determined? In other words, these seeds here in the seed bank are all heirloom seeds, and they will. You can actually harvest the seeds and use them to plant the exact same plant again. Some of the plants in there are determinate and some are indeterminate. So you can grow vining plants and you can grow bush plants. And so there's a huge variety of them. Go to LDS Prepper Store, click on the little link, and it shows you all the different plants that are inside the seed banks. God bless. Thank you very much. I don't fight against Mother Nature. Some vegetables and fruits grow better in other areas. Find out what grows well in particular areas. Don't fight against other nature. Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, but I want to grow oranges here. I want to grow mangoes here. I want to grow tangerines here. And I can and I am growing those here in my geothermal greenhouse because I'm obeying the second law of plant growth, which is temperature. So some plants grow better in the tropics because of there's more of a balance of the 6 laws of plant growth. When you're in a zone 5A like we are, and we don't have the same number of hours, the same amount of light hours, we don't have the same temperatures as in the tropics, well, I just created an environment where I can control that. That's why I had the mini greenhouses over my corn that I showed you earlier. So you literally can grow anything you want anywhere on the planet if you follow those 6 laws of plant growth. All right. And we're not fighting against nature. We're just obeying the natural laws of growing food. In SHTF, you can't get the fertilizer. That's why I recommend getting it now. That's why before I was making this, I was buying these at 20 bags at a time, and I always make sure I have at least 20 bags of these on hand. Now that I get this and I can get to at a great price and I can control the quality of it, I recommend that you don't just buy it for this year. Think down the road. You're absolutely right. It may be very difficult to get. Prices have already gone up 25% from last year. So don't just be thinking this year. Be thinking for the next few years. Be thinking of your fruit trees. Be thinking of your ornamentals and so forth. Make sure you have enough on hand. The nice thing about it is that it, like I mentioned, has indefinite shelf life. It's easy, it's clean, it's easy to store, it takes a very little space, and it's portable. He said the heirloom after, talking to somebody else, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Thank you very much. Chris says, thank you for your time and your knowledge and your love of Christ. May your house be blessed and your family. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Chris. How often do you change water filters? So in the Berkey water filter, it depends on the quality of your water. If you're getting water from a ditch, then you're going to be cleaning the filters more often. We were getting water from our 30-gallon water barrel that we have in the greenhouse, and that water from the dehumidifier was going in that barrel, and we were using that in our Berkey. And using that, which had a lot of organic material in it because it was, just water taken out of the air, and it was in that barrel, and it was growing algae or whatever. I was cleaning the filters more often than when we used the water from our well, and I clean my filters here with well water maybe every 2 years or so. I clean it whenever I need to. And you'll know when to clean your Berkey water filter because it'll just be really slow in filtering. Then you just take the Berkey water filter out, you run it underneath your faucet with a green Scotch-Brite pad. You kind of just clean the surface off just like you're cleaning yourself in the shower. It opens up the pores again, you put it back in, and you're ready to go. $2 a gallon for the purest, healthiest water you can buy, and no electricity needed. It's just amazing tasting water. It's gravity flow. It's the way to go. It's the only water filter I recommend and use. Bacillus thuringiensis. Thank you very much, Jesus. Yes, that's exactly what BT is. Bacillus thuringiensis. That's what it is. Natural Center for Home Food Preservation book is also good. Yes, that's also a very good one. Even as a free printable online complete version. I have the Imperial Berkey. Good. Again, they're no longer manufacturing that due to supply chain issues. They are manufacturing the top 3 selling systems, which is the Travel Berkey, the Big Berkey, and the Royal Berkey. Make sure you grab yours while they are still available. As things continue to get worse, we've had a lot of supply chain issues on the wholesale line side, and you're going to see them more and more on the retail side. Don't wait, don't wait, don't wait. On the micronutrients or the water filters or anything else. Is there a code you use on the Prepper Store to get the book for free? No, there isn't. You just pay $5 for the book for shipping, and the book is $24.95. Or if you get it with the 8 micronutrient packs, you get free shipping with the book. You do not need to worry about any extra discount codes. I've already discounted everything available on the store. It's already discounted, so don't worry about having to look up any codes at all. Your knowledge is amazing. Thank you for your time and for sharing us. God bless. Thank you very much, Tushi. Greetings from East Texas. Hello, Rebecca. Thank you. Here in Arizona. Oh, no. It's almost opposite. Afternoon, the sun kills everything. Yes, that's where you need the shade cloth. I grew up in Arizona. I know exactly what you're going through. You can take your old eggs and get the calcium. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. I ordered the Berkey book and the nutrients today. Good, 2 separate orders. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Indig Groove, I think it's called. Let's see. I have done that to wake up. Okay, not sure what that means. What about putting molasses as it is it immediate or have to wait for the next season for benefits? So molasses, okay, so molasses has a lot of energy in it, a lot of nutrients in it. Molasses is a really good organic fertilizer. Generally what you're going to do with molasses is you're going to make a compost tea. So actually on my YouTube channel, I teach you how to make the really best compost tea you can make. And the molasses is really, again, with these organic fertilizers, you're really feeding the bacteria in the soil. You're not feeding the plant. That does not go directly to the plant. So I teach you how to use molasses and make amazing compost tea that grows bacteria and you can spray that on your leaves. You'll see within 24 48 hours a difference. You can use it as a soil drenching to feed the bacteria in the soil. You need to do it often. You need to do it weekly or more to get the best benefits. But yes, you can get immediate benefits from the molasses because you're actually making that for the bacteria. You're growing the bacteria in the compost tea, and then you're spraying that onto your plants. I use fulvic acid for plants. Okay. As a salesman, I think when you join the nutrients, you need to be walking in your garden, showing the results, my brother. Yeah, so like I said, I have almost 500 videos in my garden. So please, I'm trying to help here, but I want to go out to my garden, but I know I've tried this and I lose Wi-Fi, and so the call drops, so I can't do that. So I have hundreds of videos of me in my garden, literally, and you can see what's going on in that garden. I appreciate what you're saying, and I would love to do that this morning, and I consider doing that, but I would just lose it. I've done it too many times. Okay. Are all these things are being designed to screw with humanity over the shortage I am referring to? Yeah, unfortunately, that could be happening there. Thank you, David. Hope to see you next week. Yes, I will be here. All God's blessing to you. Thank you very much. Why do coconut trees produce the best coconuts next to an ocean sucking up all the salty water? Well, I don't know. I haven't researched that. Don't grow coconuts. I'd love to grow coconuts. That'd be awesome. All right, I think that goes through. We got 200 comments here. Thank you very much. Please give me the thumbs up if you like what you've seen here. Please hit the share button so other people can find this. Again, swing by the LDS Prepper store so that you can get the nutrients that you need. So you can get the garden seeds. You can get all the preparedness items you need from the free section. Those free preparedness items, you will not be getting from my website. I have links to other websites, vendors that I use that you get directly from their website, and you're just paying for shipping on that. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Have a great weekend. I really hope that you take this action now, today. Don't hesitate. Get what you need. Get the experience that you need, and get prepared. Because if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. God bless.